Hey guys, Michelle from Michelle's Craft Corner here, and today's video we're going to be making this awesome card which was inspired by Disney's Moana, which I just recently watched and of course had to make it. So let's get started. So here is a close-up of that card. I think she just turned out absolutely beautiful. Now this is actually the second version of this card that I made. I'm going to show you the first one as well. The main difference is that in this one I did a couple of different colors for the sky and water, and I didn't include the mountains, and I thought it just kind of made a bigger difference on that. The other thing I'm going to show you in this video, and I made a third version of this card, and this one was featuring her cute little pig. So I'm going to show you how to turn the adorable little pig from this little piggy Stampin' Up! Stamp set into her little pet pig. Okay, so let's start with what you're going to need to make this. And of course, to do Moana, you're going to need the Beautiful You stamp set, which is just a wonderful stamp set to have. The one I'm going to be using in this video is the wood. And we're just going to be using this lady from the stamp set, but it's a great stamp set. The other thing we're going to be using in this is the High Tide stamp set, specifically for the water. This is also really good if you wanted to do the birds in the background or sponge some grass. So very great set, but we're going to be using the water for this one. The other stamp set we're going to be using is the wonderful new Fabulous Flamingo stamp set, which you can do some really cute flamingos with, but for this one we're going to be using this palm frond a lot. Now if you wanted to just do the flamingo instead of the High Tide, you could do this swirl for the water instead, but I think this one looks more realistic, but personal preference on that. So that is another wonderful one, and that one is a photopolymer stamp set. So those are the stamp sets we're going to be using. So moving on, we're going to be using quite a few different ink pads today. We're going to do a lot of sponging. So of course the Old Olive, some Bermuda Bay, the Garden Green, I'll put next to the green, the Soft Sky for the sky, and then some Chocolate Chip. And then, as I said, we're going to be doing a fair amount of sponging, and that I'm using the stamping sponges. Comes in a pack of 3 for $3.50, so really good deal. And it's these big old circle sponges, and I like to wedge them out and turn them into individual colors, but that's how I do them. Okay, so there's all the ink. Oh, I forgot one more color, the Sahara Sand. So we're going to be using that for the sand. All right, got all of those off to the side. We are also going to be using just a little bit of the new Wood Texture Designer Series paper. You guys know I am absolutely in love with this. And what's nice about this card is you don't really use a lot of it. So this is really good for just a nice scrap piece, especially if you're doing the boat. It just doesn't take very much at all. And it looks good in any of the different wood tones. So you don't have to do a dark wooden boat, and you don't have to do the darker piece for the background. You can do a lighter piece. So lots of options. Love, love, love this. So we're going to be using that. We're also going to be using, of course, our paper snips for a little fine cutting. And then we've got a couple of different, okay, so there's that. I'm going to use the Calypso Coral cardstock, and then also a piece of Whisper White for our cardstock colors. We're also going to be using the journaling pen from Stampin' Up! It's a really nice fine tip, comes in a pack of 2 to do some detail work on her. Then of course you always need your good old multi-purpose liquid glue. If you don't have that, you can use the snail, but it will be a little tricky doing the edges of the boat. So just FYI. And then we're going to use a couple different colors of the Stampin' Up! Markers. Primarily though, we're going to be using the Calypso Coral, the wonderful new, well, that's not for that, the Sahara Sand, oh no, Crumb Cake, sorry, Calypso Coral, Crumb Cake, it's one of those days, and the Early Espresso. If you don't have that, you could also do the chocolate chip as well. And those are for coloring Moana herself, and then the swirl there. And then when we get to the pig, we're going to be using the new powder pink and the basic gray to color him in. So lots of fun colors. All right, so everybody got all of that? Then the other non-Stampin' Up! Supply that I recommend for this video, and you guys know I like my Post-its, is some Post-it notes. Now, for this one, I'm going to be using just some non-standard, really big ones, and then also kind of your standard size as well. If you don't have the big ones, you can double up a standard one just by kind of layering it on top and making a longer line. So that's a good option as well. And you don't have to do the name brand Post-its, but they do tend to work a little better than the off-brands. So that's also personal preference, and the color does not matter. Okay, so you guys got all of that, all your supplies, and you are ready to go. So we are going to start with our piece of Whisper White. Now this is cut at 5 3/4. Right, so flip that over, and then we're also going to start with our lady from the Beautiful You set. I'm going to pull her out, and then also our classic chocolate chip. So let's go ahead and just stamp her. Now I am trying a new camera setup with this video, so if you're one of my regular subscribers and have seen some of my others, do let me know what you think. I really would value your opinion as far as if you like this new style of video or not. Okay, so we're going to stamp her in that, and then we're also going to stamp her on a Post-it note. So, see, she fits in a regular Post-it note. Just like that. If you don't have the chocolate chip, the Early Espresso will work okay as well, but I think chocolate chip looks a little better. All right, to the side. So then you are going to take your wonderful paper snips and fussy cut her out. So you have that as a mask. It's easier if you try to stamp her where at least some part of her is on the sticky part. That will help it hold down when you use it as a mask. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is take my markers. So I've got my Crumb Cake, my Calypso Coral, and then also my Stampin' Up! Journaling pen, which these are awesome. Love, love, love those. Okay, and yeah, those are the main things. So I'm going to start off by just coloring her skin with my Crumb Cake marker. Now she doesn't have a ton of skin exposed. We just got that leg kicking out. And a little bit of that foot, and then the arms. So that's pretty simple, quick and easy right there. Boom. Now, if you've seen the movie, she kind of has a tube top style top, so I wanted to show a little bit of skin, not too much, just to show that there's that difference. It's not one piece. So actually, we're going to switch to the Calypso Coral first here. So for that, just above, hold this closer so you can see. So just above the edge where the skirt is, I'm just going to do a little line, and that's just for her sash. And then the design of the dress, it kind of naturally has this spot where it almost looks like a sash to me, so I just colored it in, just like that. And if you want, you could color in this other sash, but then it would look more like it's straight on her back. And in the movies, it's more to the side. So I kind of colored along this line for the second kind of part of her sash. Just like that. So very, very simple. And if you want, you can take your marker, your chocolate chip marker, and kind of give it a little bit more of an edge. But let's go ahead and do her hair real quick before we do her top. Now this is a part I know everybody was very curious how I turned her into her, because of course you have this big hat, and you know, Moana doesn't wear a hat, so how do you do that? So what I start with first, let me see if I can show this for the camera, is I take my fine tip marker and I'm just going to trace around the very edge of the hat, just like that, and kind of carry it along. So it's not quite a triangle, but just kind of like that. So we have just a basic guide. I'll hold it up closer. Basic guide for where her hair is going to be, just like that. And depending on, you know, where her head is facing, sometimes you may want to give it a little bit more of a bump on top, just so, you know, she has a rounded top of her head. So now for here, this is kind of free form. There's not really a structure to this, but you're just going to do a lot of like little squiggles and lines straight down. You don't want to color it in fully, because if you do, then you're not going to see the squiggles. So you want a little of the white showing through, but not much. I'm going to draw some. So what's nice is she has pretty thick hair, so drawing it pretty thick. See what I'm doing? So just little squiggles and lines just straight over. And because it's that black, it's going to cover up the brown really nicely. Even if you stamped her in black, it would still cover up because, you know, masking that. But yet again, I mean, I'm not coloring it solid, so it looks more natural like hair. Okay, it's a little better to do the hair part before you do the top, just depending on where the top falls. If you're seeing a little bit of a hat poking through, you can add a little bit more in that area. And just depending on how you do the end is kind of how the taper of her hair will be, but it doesn't have to be exact. I do want to go a little darker right there, but you kind of get the idea. So it's not an exact science with that. So now that I have her hair down, I'm going to go ahead and draw the top of her little tube top. So there's some creases in the design that just kind of make for a good natural line. So it's just like a little wedge. And you can see right there between her sash and the edge of her tube top, there's that little skin exposed. So I'm going to go back and add my crumb cake just to kind of do that skin in the center. See, and she's almost done already. So now next thing we're going to do is the designs on her dress. Now if you look closely, it's a very subtle design. In the movie she has a very lacy looking dress, so you can add more or less on that. But for this, I'm just taking my dark, well, this is not chocolate chip. Let me grab the chocolate chip. But you can use Earl Espresso as well, but dark chocolate chip marker, and using the fine tip of that, I'm just going to do some little lines just all along the bottom of her dress, just kind of like a fringe, like a faux fringe look all along the edge. Just like that. So not an exact science, but pretty straightforward. And then I just did a little zigzag just along kind of about the middle, which is, I'm not going to do a zigzag upside down. That'll be a little awkward. Okay, so just zigzag all the way across. There we go. You can also use the journaling pen if you prefer. And then on some of these I did an extra little zigzag on top. But there you go. So there is our basic Moana. So pretty quick, pretty easy. Yeah. Alright, so now let's go on to the rest of this card. So we're going to pull out that mask that we did using our beautiful U and lay that right on top of her. Now, because we drew the hair on and it's poking out, it's not, of course, going to be covered by the mask, but don't worry. A lot of the sponging we're doing is going to be lighter than the black, so it's going to be fine. All right, so speaking of sponging, let's move on to our next fun part. So I'm going to take a handy Post-it note. So we're going to start with doing the mountain in the back, which I know might seem kind of like a weird spot to start, but it's a little easier to do that first because the others are straight lines. So you're going to take your Post-it note and just going to tear. And if you want to use your scissors, you can, but I'm just doing a light tearing of just mountainous looking. So not much to that. There you go. And I'm going to post it down. Okay. Right there behind her, just like that. And then I'm going to take another Post-it note and I'm going to mask underneath, so where I want the bottom of the mountain to be. So just like that. So it's not a very big mountain. Let me pull it up closer so you can see that. There we go. So just like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab my old olive ink pad and my little old olive sponge. We're just going to ink it up and just sponge that area. What's nice about the masks is it keeps the rest of your paper from getting it on it. Now you do want to go a little darker on just the top edge or the bottom edge. It'll give it a little more definition. Now you can also, if you wanted to, tap a little of the garden green on it, but we're just going to keep moving. But just for a quick peek, you can see that nice line right there, kind of kept it protected. And there's also the top. So there's our fun mountain. All right, so that was pretty quick and easy. Moving on, let's go ahead and do the sky next. And this is where those bigger Post-it notes are a little handier. So I'm just line that up across the top. Just like that. And then I'm going to pull out that little piece that I had tore for the mountain, and I'm going to use that to mask the mountain. And if I line it up, there we go. Now, because it's a lighter blue, the masking of that part won't matter as much. So we're going to use the soft sky. All out. Got my soft sky sponge going. Okay, so basically tap, tap, tap. And oh, he moved. There we go. Okay, we're just gonna do some sponging just all over, and depending on how heavy or dark you make that is how dark your sky is gonna be. Do a little dragging here. This is part of why I switched the camera setup, is because sponging tended to shake the camera. So hopefully this is much better. So there we go. Pretty quick. We have the sky done. Now next we're going to go ahead and do the water, and for that we're going to use the Bermuda Bay. I'm going to go ahead and flip. Now be careful when you take the Post-it note, you don't rip the one on the girl. Go. Okay, so we're going to flip that. So we now are masking the sky. We just have the water. And I'm going to go ahead and do one. Where's the other? Oh, there's the big ones. Okay. All right, I'm just going to take my paper snips real quick, and I'm going to do one for the sand as well. So maybe if you have a punch, you could do, you know, punch, but just quick to just do a quick little cut. So about where I want the sand to start. Got that nice curve going. Actually, I did that wrong. Hold on. Well, actually, no, we'll do that. And then we'll just grab another big one. Here we go. And go like that. Here we go. That'll work. Okay. So I just want to mainly get that sand where she's going to be standing. The corner you're not going to see. And there's a little give and take with this too. Alright, so now we'll get our Bermuda Bay. This is a fun challenge, stamping to the camera. Okay, so ink that up. We're going to just kind of, and I like to kind of drag it a little for the water. To me, it just looks a little more natural than the straight spotting on. Almost done. See, this is a pretty quick card. Just want to be sure to get that edge so you have a nice crisp horizon line. There we go. Alright, and now we're going to go ahead and pull that water effect that was in the High Tide stamp set, that water edge, and throw that on a block. This is the size H block, if you're curious. I'm just going to stamp that in the Bermuda Bay yet again. Now, I'd like to kind of stamp off on this, so stamp once off and then on, and it kind of keeps it from being too dark. Okay, just like that. Stamp off and then stamp on. Now you don't have to go too much on this side because we're going to have a boat covering some of that. Get a little more right there. Okay, so there we have our basic water, and this is going to look really cool when I take it off. Hold on, let me just get that corner there. Okay, guys, ready for the reveal going on? Okay, so we're going to take that off. So we've got our water going, we've got our little bit of the mountain. I'm going to pull this off. We've got a little sand beach bar area. So now we're going to go ahead and do that with the sandy Sahara sand. Grab another sponge. Make sure that her foot is covered, and I'm just going to kind of sponge across. Now you don't have to go right up to the edge, kind of that surf line, but I do like to kind of get the bottom of the card decently there. That's probably a little heavier than I did in the other one, but you get the idea. And if you prefer, you could also do the sand stamp from the High Tide as well. There's the big one, and then there's also a little sand spot as well you could use. All right, we're just cruising right along. So now you can see our card so far, which I think looks really good just like that, honestly. If you don't want to bother doing the boat, I think that works pretty well. All right, so now we're going to stick that off to the side, and we're going to go ahead and work on our boat. So first thing for that is, okay, so you're going to grab just your scrap from that, and then also a small square in the Whisper White or Very Vanilla if you have that in hand. It's just a very small square, and this is cut at 1 3/4 by 1 3/4. Alright, so this I'm probably going to have to do backwards to the camera. So this is kind of our guide for, now if you look at the sail, closer there, okay, so if you look at the sail, it's a little less than a 90-degree angle on the sail with a little bit of a slope cut out of it. The very first one I did, I actually kind of freehand, so I had to kind of work on a way to show you guys how to do this, not freehand. So what we're going to do is start with our square. I'm going to flip that over, of course, and let's grab a pencil. Okay, so starting from just your bottom corner, you could either cut, or I'm just going to draw a line for reference. You draw a line straight up, and not exactly in the middle, but kind of a good triangle out of there. And then you're going to cut just basically a swoop from that top point to the bottom corner. Now if you have a circle punch, you can do a circle punch of that. But I had a hard time deciding which punch would be the best. So it was just a little quicker to just cut it. So if you guys can see that. So it's kind of like a shark fin, essentially. So I'm going to take my scissors and just cut that real quick. If you're a little nervous, you can always cut a little less the first time, but you can't add it back. Okay. Some of those erase marks a little. All right. Well, I'll erase it here more in a minute. It's not a very good eraser. Anyway, okay. So we've got that as our basic sail. Now the other thing I did with mine is I took a little of that Sahara sand, so I guess the smudges will be covered here, and I just hit it on the corners just to give it a little definition. You don't have to, but I thought it just made it look more like canvas. And just a little on each side. So you can see that. Still a little smudgy from that pencil, but not too bad. All right. All right, so for the sides of the sail that kind of hold it, you really just need the tiniest of little pieces. I'm not even going to give you guys a measurement just because it's such a tiny little strip. And all this is just kind of part of that rigging. So you can use your paper trimmer or just free cut it. And we're just going to glue it right on top of that edge. Now for this, it is a lot easier to use your liquid glue. And this is another thing that is really handy for any time, oh, sorry, hit the camera. For any time you're doing with really fine, tiny things and you might be getting glue off your paper, this non-stick mat, the silicone mat, is awesome for this. Okay, so I just did that little strip and I'm just going to do a little tiny bit of glue along that edge. And then just glue it down. And you can always trim it off too if you'd rather go that route. Glue it down and then trim it. All right, and then I'm going to do another little strip for the bottom. Now you do want your top mast to have a little bit extra at the bottom, so it looks like it's you know, sticking out from the boat. You don't want it flush on the base of the boat, if that makes sense. Okay, let me pick him up so you can see what we got so far. He's still a little wet, but boom. So we just got that edge, that little piece. All right, and then using whatever wood grain that you picked for your sail, and do the same thing just so it matches for the base. Now this piece, I think I had it at 1/2 inch by 1 inch, was I think about what it was when I started, but we'll do 1.5 inches. Okay, so I've got just your little tiny piece. And what you're going to do, so hitting everything, okay, is basically you're going to start from that top, okay, hold it up, start from that top corner and do kind of a swoop, just to kind of curve the front of the bow out. Just like that. And then you're going to go from the other side, so from this corner, and kind of swoop it back just to kind of make it a little more realistic, not too big. Okay, just like that. Now you can take your piece of paper and just kind of eyeball it and see if you need to trim it down some more, which I think I may. Seems a little too significant there. There we go. Well, it's nice, it's just a little piece of paper. You can always cut it a little more, but you get the basic idea. So we're going to cut that, and so we're just using the little bit of the front part. And you can kind of eyeball where it's going to land. You see what I mean with the mast? If you have a little bit of it sticking so it's not just flush on the boat. That. Sticking to my finger. Okay? So the other thing I'd recommend too is you don't want to necessarily like cover her foot with it, but that is another personal preference moment. I'm going to flip this around so I can glue it correctly, but it is a little easier to do the base boat and then just tuck the sail underneath. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little glue here. Just a little bit on that sail. Sticking that straight down, just like that. Now I glued it, I have a little extra, I'm going to trim that off the edge of the card. There we go. So now our boat fits. The other thing that's a trademark of Moana's boat is this really cool swirl that is also on her necklace as well. Now, I had the hardest time trying to draw that exactly like the movie, so honestly I cheated and just did the simple swirl. Perhaps you might have better drawing skills than I, but it kind of hurt my brain to try to do anything besides just the simple swirl. And yeah, I think most people will be able to tell the difference. So I just took the Calypso Coral marker and just did a big swirl in the center of the sail. So yet again, not exactly the swirl from the boat, but close enough that most people aren't going to give you grief. Okay, so next thing is we're going to go ahead and stamp our palm frond on it, and I think this just really helps tie it together and make it look very tropical. So for this I use the Garden Green ink pad. And then of course we've got our fun palm frond, and you can use the Pierce matte if you want to give it a little more contact, but it's a pretty small stamp, so you can kind of get away without using it. So for this one, I just like to stamp on the corners, so just kind of like you're peeking through the forest and you're just seeing her on the beach, just like that. It's really good to have something under your paper because you're going to be stamping off the edge. This is also good to hide any corners you might not like. If you don't like how a corner turned out, you can just add more palm fronds to it. But yeah, I think that looks pretty good. You can also do some different shades of palm fronds with that. You could do some old olive on it. You could do some browns if you want just some different colors of palm fronds on there. So that is our basic Moana card so far. Hope you guys like it. So now we're going to go ahead and take our Calypso Coral cardstock base. This is just cut at 5.5 by and scored at 4 1/4, which is a really nice color. I just don't use it very much, but it is exactly the right color for her and her dress. And then we're going to go ahead and take a piece of that, oh, here it is, okay, Wood Textures Designer Series paper. And yet again, any of these will look wonderful with this. I mean, it just depends what kind of wood grain texture you want to go with for her and for her boat. But there's some really good options in this. I've been using a lot of it. It's kind of all cut up, but it's 6 by 6 sheets, so you can do a lot with these. So for this, I'll just use this little piece that I started earlier. So this is not going to be as big as this other one, but it's just a nice little strip on the corner, and it matches my boat. I'm just going to do like that and just trim off the excess. If you flip it over, you can kind of see that line a little easier for trimming. And then the other thing, oh, I almost forgot. So the other thing I liked to do on this one, which you don't have to do if you don't want to, is I did sponge the edge of this one. So you can do the, oh, there's my chocolate chip sponge. So you can do just a little edge of the chocolate chip, just kind of all around, just to give it a little bit more pop on the edge. You don't have to, but I just think it looks really cool. So I'm just going to kind of give it a little quick brush before I glue it down all around the edge. There we go. So just a little edge, a little pop. All right, now we're going to go ahead and glue her down. Oh, don't glue her down upside down. That'd be fun. Okay. And there you have a basic, really cool Moana card. So the other thing I want to show you in this video real quick, pull this other one out. So this one I made pretty much the same way. I just, instead of going horizontal, I went vertical with it and just did a bigger mountain on the side. And then instead of doing the Sahara sand, I just sponged with the old olive for grass. But I stamped and masked the pig just like I did Moana. And I'm going to show you how I colored him. So I'm going to grab a little scrap. So he, yet again, was stamped using this little piggy set. Move this away here. Okay. So this little piggy set, which is a really cute set. And there's the mask that I used to cover him when I was sponging. So very, very cute set. A lot you can do with that. So in the movie, this pig is known to be black and white. So I colored him with kind of a gray and the pinks. Let me pull those out again. Pull my post-it notes everywhere here. Okay. So the other thing that's of note is I did the eyes a little different too. So here, let me hold both up so you can kind of see some of the differences here. Okay. So on his nose, instead of the straight slits, I kind of colored circles just to make them a little more dramatic. And on the eyes, now these eyes are kind of beady eyes. I drew circles using those dots as kind of the center of the pupil. Just drew big circles around. And then I also gave him eyebrows because in the movie he actually has eyebrows, which I thought was of note. Now just when you're stamping this one, the stamp set actually does have words on this stamp set. It says this little piggy and a lot of options like says thank you or loves you, that kind of thing. So I just stamped it to where the words were off the card so you don't see them. Okay, so let's go ahead and color him in real quick. Now to do the eyes, I use that fine tip journaling pen yet again. Let's see if I can do this upside down. So just basically drawing. Actually, I may have used a regular pen now that I'm looking at it, because this seems, but this should work. Nope, I don't like it. I think I used a regular pen. Let me stamp him again. Sorry about that. Where is he? There he is. Okay, redo. I'll do it one more time real quick, because okay, so stamping where the words are off the card, like that. And I actually stamped them in black. I just had the brown handier. Off the side. Okay. Clean that in a minute. Okay, so let me just grab a pen. Just a handy Stampin' Up pen. Yeah, I think that's the difference. So, just drew a circle. Yeah, that's the difference. Okay. So I just use this pen is just a little thinner line than the other one, because you see that one, he looks kind of scary. So just a standard pen to do that little line. Okay. And then I used this for his nose. So I just kind of gave him just a little bit more of a circle on the nose, just like that. You can see that. So boom, some more nostrils. And then it was pretty much just coloring it in. So using the powder pink, I colored in his ears, just like that, and his nose. And then using the basic gray, I colored in his spots. I had to stare at a couple pictures of him, try to figure out where all the spots were. But the most noticeable one is the one around his eye. So as long as you get that one, you're pretty good. There. And then just to do the eyebrow on this side, just going to do a darker line, gray on top of the gray. And that's basically how I did the cute little pig. And then yet again, I just did a mask and covered him for doing the sponging. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial on how to make the Moana card. Do leave me a comment below on what you thought of the new style of video. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And I hope to see you in the craft room next week. Bye-bye.